Well, what began as a home rebuild after Hurricane Irma became an architectural sensation using some interesting building blocks. Here to tell us about one of America's most popular Airbnbs is Rob DePiazza. He's the owner of the Prince Road Container House in St. Augustine. Rob, thanks for being here.
Morning.
It's
Nice to
great
be
to
here.
see you. So, Rob, I've known you for a long, long time,
A long time.
through many iterations of like my journalism career. But take us back, if you will, to 2017. At the time, you were living in a conventional
Pretty
two-story house in
conventional.
a fairly conventional looking suburban area in St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
So Hurricane Irma came along, and there's a tree on the property that was always suspect, and it finally fell and destroyed the house while we were in it.
Wow.
And prior to that, but not long, I started working on a project using shipping containers to build art studios. I don't know if I ever told you that.
No,
But
I mean, you owned an art gallery for many, many years.
yeah, so I
Screen Arts
have a
Gallery.
screen printing company, and then I had an art gallery for 10 years. And so, and I started working on this project using containers for art studios. And I connected with a Gainesville architect, Stephen Bender. And we hadn't gotten very far when the house came down, and I just made the spontaneous decision to build
With containers.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not common even today, but at the time, far less common. And so you were really creating, like, kind of building the plane as you fly it. I mean, you had to do a lot of research. You had to really locate these shipping containers.
That's pretty easy. Yeah, any port city always has a glut of containers. So
At least
that,
pre-pandemic.
yeah,
There was a while where they were
yeah,
hard to come by,
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was very hands-on. I mean, I really couldn't hire a contractor to do the job. Fortunately, I had experience with construction projects, so I was able to act as the contractor, hire the subs, which most of them were friends of mine. So it wasn't a real stretch for me, but what was difficult was managing my business at the time. I had just come off crutches from like some major ortho surgeries, and so it's kind of a
It was a dark patch.
difficult mix.
Difficult.
Yeah,
And I mean, you were displaced for a really long time from your home.
yeah, and that's like the only part of the process that was a problem was the time it took to plan the house, which I didn't anticipate it taking almost a year because I didn't really have a year to kill,
You
So,
didn't have a year to kill.
well, because I lost my house, I didn't have a place to live. We rented a house, but then the funding from the insurance company to pay for housing like went away really quick, and so I was out of pocket, thousands of dollars a month for housing, which could have gone to construction, but
Yeah, but it was still paying for you to rent a place and to live.
right,
Yeah.
yeah. So
So you start the container home project. This ends up being 9 individual containers. Is that right?
right,
Yeah.
but only 6 make up living space, 5 floor space. So it's 1,600 square feet of living space. So it's kind of deceiving because it looks really massive. Because
It
there's 2 containers on the ground, and then there's that tilted container. That's just an architectural element.
Yeah. I would think a lot of people would think, well, you're taking a product that exists, maybe isn't that expensive, and you're stacking them together. It must be a really inexpensive project.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's like the one myth about container houses. If you're building with 2, maybe so, because it's self-contained. You've got the walls and the roof and the floor. But when you're doing a project like this, where you're taking out like entire sides of the containers and building back structural, steel, um, and then just the task of welding everything. Yeah, it wasn't about the money. It was really purely the aesthetic. Um, and unfortunately, there are parts that I couldn't estimate the cost of, and so 3/4 or 2/3 into the process, I didn't have it. I ran out of money, and so fortunately, I got a SBA disaster loan, like a really low interest loan, to kind of bridge that.
To bridge that, yeah. I mean, so in addition to it being an unusual project with some unusual materials, I know you well enough to know that you're a bit of a perfectionist about things and you like things that are nicely done and done with a lot of care and a lot of specificity. And so this house was put together with, artistic touches, but also some really amazing architectural elements. I understand that you just recently spoke to Dwell magazine
Hmm.
about the house, and it's
Yeah,
obviously been getting
thank
a lot of
you.
attention. But some of the things about this house, so, we're looking if for people who are watching our live stream. This is the finished product. This is what is currently the Airbnb that is being talked about so much, and it is an extraordinary property. Um, Tell us a little bit about what some of the elements are that make it better and different than just maybe a two container home.
Well, for one, it sort of emulated the old house, which was an elevated living space. Um, and, uh, but, really, I look at it more like an art project. And a lot of the details kind of came after we took occupancy, which was crucial. Like I had to get in the house. And so that allowed me to kind of live with things and kind of conceive ideas that um, I knew I wanted to do something different, but I knew quite what. And so, after living with it, the idea would pop into my head. It wasn't forced. So a lot of it happened organically and just evolved to what it is today. I mean, I still work on it like constantly. There's always some little detail to
Yeah.
contend with, but
I mean, your gallery, your previous house has always had kind of funky elements to it, and some are carried over to this, including, like, the jukebox that works
yeah,
and the
yeah,
really high-end espresso machines, and, there's certain signature Rob DiPiazza elements.
right.
Um, but there's an enormous collection of artwork that also is part of this, including, original Howard Finsters. There's, people that showed at your gallery,
Hmm.
that I'm sure you could name dozens of that are part of the
Yeah.
display there. So, I guess my first question is, what made you decide to start making this available as an Airbnb after it took you as long as it did to kind of get in the home to
Yeah.
sort of self displace?
Well, the whole goal at this point was to travel, more than in the past, um, and so I had the idea of when I travel, placed on Airbnb.
Yeah.
So it really is my primary residence. It's not a full time Airbnb, which quite honestly is how Airbnb started. It started with the concept was to rent a room. You rent a room in your
Or
house.
like couch surf almost, right? You
Yeah,
could just
and
travel and
and then it became a real cash cow for people because they'd buy a property or they turn it into a full time Airbnb just for the money, which that kind of ran its course and uh, caused some backlash. And that's why I think it's become so popular is that people know it's someone's home. It's not a. In fact, we had a famous Airbnb personality stay, Ryan Trahan, and they made the comment that this is like a man's home. It's
they
just
could
you
tell.
could
Yeah.
it's like it's not just
It's not a sterile, decorated Airbnb.
right.
It is a lived in
So
product.
so the response to that has been overwhelming. Like people are just grateful, which is kind of ironic because it costs money. So, but at the same time, they just appreciate you know me welcoming them into my home. Trusting them, which is a big thing. It's the first question that everybody asks when they're like, how do you trust people in your home?
Well,
It's like,
I'd
well,
ask that. Yeah.
you do or you don't. I mean, it's like trusting anything. It's like it's kind of the basis of everything. So, and
Mhm.
I lean towards trusting people, and I think I think that people of a certain caliber, they have such an appreciation, and sometimes I come home and I can't even tell there's been a guest. Like it's almost as clean as when
Wow.
they came. So
Yeah. I
uh,
guess that's a sign of their appreciation. Let's talk a little bit about, Ryan, the YouTuber that came to your house because that kicked off. I mean, you've been getting attention certainly in the local market because the story of your recovery from Hurricane
right.
Irma was really dramatic and, your displacement lasted so long. The home was so unusual. And so it's always kind of gotten a lot of media attention. But this really was next level because in part because this guy was a YouTube personality bringing additional attention, but also because of the project that he was doing at the time,
Hmm.
which created its own little, groundswell of internet celebrity. So what was he
Hmm.
doing and why was he staying with you?
So I got a booking request. Actually, he just booked it in January of this year, and it was kind of unusual because it was booked for June, and I didn't recognize his name. And he reached out asking for permission to film, and he just casually mentioned a YouTube channel. He didn't boast or anything. And so I looked him up, and he had nearly 21 million followers. And then I watched some of his content. And it's, I can see the attraction. He's very personable, right? And a lot of his projects end up being fundraisers. And so months later, like literally weeks, before he arrived, I discovered that it was a 50 Airbnb, 50 states, 50 Airbnb. So one in each state that they pre-selected as their favorite. And so mine obviously was for Florida. And then they literally stayed in one per day, and he and his wife. And then they ranked them as they went. So for a while, it was number 4 because I think they stayed in my house on day 15. And then it ended up being number 9. So it made the top 10 in the country. And then most flattering was they ranked it number 1 for interior,
Yeah.
which to me, that was like the main, compliment.
Yeah,
So.
because I mean, it is such a beautiful space. And
But it was a fundraiser for
right.
St. Jude, I meant to say, and his goal was to raise $1 million, and I don't know where it's at now because I think it kept ticking, but at the end of the tour, it was like 11 or $12 million.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Great.
really exceeded because it took on a life of its own. And it was sort of like a contest that they would do. They would have to do little challenges between these things, and each time they would perform a challenge, somebody would commit another big chunk of money, and so it ended up generating just a ton of money. But your place was, very much, a favorite of theirs. It has also, though, gone on to this ranking, that Airbnb itself does about what properties are most popular or most, generate the highest reviews. And yours is also on that list of Airbnb properties.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what
In
is
fact,
it
it was,
ranking?
it's kind of funny because it was ranked, it had a 5.0 rating forever. And I had one guest that nicked me because one of my bathrooms doesn't have a door on it. And they were upset that they didn't have property or privacy in their, in the bathroom.
And so it's not a perfect 5.0 anymore. But it is still, it's got a near perfect 4.98 rating for Airbnb, which is pretty extraordinary.
So if you book the house, there's no door in the toilet upstairs. Okay.
And don't get mad about it.
Don't blame me.
You've been fairly warned. So, is it? I mean, I know this. It isn't a permanent Airbnb, which has sometimes been the issue with Airbnbs in communities. Your house is also, though, an unusual property. People drive by it sometimes to check it out.
Constantly.
How are the neighbors with it today? Have they ever been resistant, or has it ever been a problem for them?
No, because in fact, I had a conversation with somebody I don't interact with often in the neighborhood, and they remarked on how there's never been any kind of disturbance or with guests, or that they even knew they were there. Because number one, I only allow 6 people in the house. I disallow parties or, like them renting it as a party house.
Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly, throw birthday parties or whatever, but, so yeah, everyone's been super respectful. The neighbors love it. There's not a overabundance of traffic. I mean, it's not, annoying.
Yeah.
But it does get kind of a constant, people just stop and pause and take pictures and sometimes get out and,
They've stopped wandering into the property.
Yeah, there's been a few. Yeah. And if I'm outside and they start asking questions, because a lot of them have like kind of almost researched it, because it's also on Atlas Obscura. And so people have gotten off the freeway to come and see the house. And I'll just give a tour.
Because there is, I mean, in addition to the unusual look of the outside, there's also this massive mural on the outside that you created that sort of commemorates the original house and the disaster.
My friend Riccardo Nanini, he goes by Cane, Cane. He lives in Barcelona. He's an Italian artist, but he flew over, he and his girlfriend Anne, and they painted the mural. And his work's really allegorical. I have a couple of his paintings, and so we just told the story of the storm. So the main character is like Irma.
Yeah.
And she's blowing and there's a tree falling and
Yeah. Well, it is great that you're back in a safe place to live after all of that. And it's so fun to see the success of the Prince Road Container House. Rob DePiazza, thanks for so much.
You bet.
Congrats on all the success.
It's fun.
All